They don't need chains to bind you. They don't need walls or cages to trap you. And they don't even need love to keep you at their side. Because the strongest form of control doesn't look like control at all. It feels like freedom. It feels like desire. It feels like longing, as if you're the one choosing. But the choice was never really yours. Friedrich Nietzsche, more than a century ago, warned us of this silent force. He saw that human beings are not governed by reason, by logic, or even by truth. We are governed by something deeper, something darker, something more primitive than we like to admit: desire. And here's the terrifying part. When desire is manipulated, when someone knows how to create it, they don't need to force you. You will willingly walk into the cage. You will believe it was your idea all along. Think about this. Have you ever wanted something so badly, convinced yourself you were making a free choice, only to realize later that you were playing someone else's game? That person you couldn't stop texting, even when they ignored you. That company you kept buying from, even when you swore you'd stop. That belief system you defended, even when a voice inside you whispered doubt. Were you really choosing, or were you seduced? Nietzsche wrote that people don't actually want truth. They want illusions. Why? Because illusions feel good. Illusions make life easier. Illusions give us comfort, and comfort is seductive. And seduction, Nietzsche warned, is the hidden engine of power. Most people think seduction is about beauty, charm, flattery, or attraction. A candlelit dinner, a magnetic glance, a soft whisper in the ear. But Nietzsche saw something far more sinister. The most dangerous seducer isn't the one who showers you with attention. It's the one who withholds it. They give you just enough to feel seen, then they vanish. Just enough to spark your hunger, then they retreat. And suddenly you're not in control anymore. You're chasing, you're craving, you're desperate for more. That desperation, that is the leash. It's invisible, but it pulls you back again and again, even when logic screams at you to run. And the cruelest part? You won't recognize it while it's happening. You'll call it chemistry. You'll call it fate. You'll call it love. But what you're actually feeling is dependency. A craving engineered by someone who knows exactly how to press the right buttons in your nervous system. Let's go deeper. Psychologists today call this intermittent reinforcement. Nietzsche didn't have that language, but he saw the reality. It works like this. If you give someone constant rewards, constant love, constant attention, constant validation, they become comfortable. They relax. They stop chasing. But if you give them rewards unpredictably, sometimes yes, sometimes no, sometimes a flood of affection, sometimes silence, their nervous system becomes addicted. They never know when the next high is coming, so they cling tighter. Sound familiar? It's the toxic relationship cycle. It's the manipulative workplace. It's the product you don't need but keep buying. It's the religion that promises paradise, but only after you've endured hell. This rhythm of scarcity and reward is the heartbeat of seduction. And once you're hooked on it, it doesn't feel like control. It feels like longing. Now ask yourself, how many times in your life have you mistaken this craving for love? How many times have you believed that the intensity of your hunger meant the bond was real? How many times have you ignored your own logic, your own boundaries, because you thought, if it feels this strong, it must be destiny? Nietzsche would tell you, no, that intensity isn't destiny, it's design. It's someone playing with the strings of your desire, making you believe you're free, while every move is being quietly guided. And here's why this matters. Because this tactic is everywhere. It's not rare. It's not reserved for genius manipulators or tyrants. It's happening in your personal life, in your relationships, in your career, in your habits, in the way you spend your time. Governments use it. Corporations use it. Religions use it. Partners and friends use it. Everywhere you look, you will find the same structure. Give just enough to awaken desire. Withhold enough to deepen craving. And make people believe that without you, they will collapse. That's the structure Nietzsche wanted us to see. That's the hidden seduction. But here's the brutal truth. If you don't recognize this game, you will spend your life thinking you are free, when in reality, you are enslaved. You will think you are choosing, when in reality, your choices were scripted. You will think you are in love, when in reality, you are in chains. And Nietzsche's first warning is simple, but devastating. The darkest seduction does not feel like chains. It feels like love. It feels like loyalty. It feels like devotion. That's why it's so powerful. That's why most people never escape it. So in this first step, before we go further into Nietzsche's darker layers of warning, I want you to reflect. Really reflect. Look at your own life. Where are you mistaking seduction for freedom? Who is giving you just enough to keep you chasing? Where are you hooked on cycles of scarcity and reward? Because until you see this, until you admit how easily desire can be hijacked, you'll never be able to break free from the deeper layers. This was Nietzsche's opening warning. You are not ruled by truth. You are ruled by craving. And whoever learns to manipulate that craving will own you without ever lifting a finger. This is just the beginning. Because once desire has you on a leash, the seduction doesn't stop. That's just phase one. The next stage is far darker. It's not about what you want anymore. It's about who you are. It's the tactic that doesn't just make you chase. It rewrites your identity. And when we step into part two, you'll see exactly how seduction doesn't just control your actions, it reshapes your very sense of self. The first trap Nietzsche exposed was desire, that invisible leash woven out of scarcity and reward. But desire is only the beginning, because once someone has you hooked, once they've trained you to chase, the seduction deepens. It shifts from what you want to who you are. This is where seduction becomes truly dangerous, because it doesn't just control your actions, it rewrites your identity. Think about it. At first you're saying, I want them, I need them, I can't stop thinking about them. But slowly the language changes. You start whispering, I am nothing without them. Do you hear the shift? That's not desire anymore. That's dependence. And Nietzsche warned us. This is when seduction becomes fatal. Because when you hand over your identity, you hand over everything. Here's the secret most people miss. Human beings are not just hungry for love. We are hungry for mirrors. We don't simply want to be adored. We want to be reflected. We want someone to confirm who we believe we are, or who we dream of becoming. And this is where the seducer's power multiplies. They don't force you. They don't argue with you. They mirror you. They reflect back the version of yourself you most want to see. They tell you the words you've longed to hear since childhood. They play the role you secretly crave. The soulmate, the mentor, the savior, the one who finally gets you. And before you know it, you're not evaluating them anymore. You're addicted to the reflection. Nietzsche called this the illusion of becoming, the trick of making you believe that only through them will you discover your true self. But here's the brutal twist. That reflection is always a mask. And once you mistake the mask for reality, you give away the deepest power you have, the power to define yourself. Now let's bring this into your life. Have you ever met someone who felt like destiny? Like they were sent to complete you? Like they held the missing piece of your identity? At first it feels like being lifted up, but over time, you notice the cost. You start sacrificing, you silence your doubts. You shrink parts of yourself to keep their approval. You bend your personality to protect the reflection they offer you. Until one day you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize yourself anymore. You've been rewritten, not by truth, not by growth, but by seduction. Nietzsche warned that when seduction reaches this level, it kills freedom silently. You don't even notice it slipping away, because you're too busy clinging to the reflection. It could be a partner who convinces you that without them, you are worthless. A boss who makes you believe your value is tied to their approval. A belief system that whispers you are broken, but promises to redeem you as long as you obey. At first, it feels like love, loyalty, purpose, but underneath, it's dependence. And dependence is the graveyard of identity. Nietzsche once wrote, "Whoever despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." What did he mean? Even in self-hatred, there is still a fragile thread of selfhood. At least you know you are the one who despises. At least there is still an I. But the darkest seduction severs even that thread. It doesn't leave you despising yourself. It leaves you forgetting yourself. And what could be more terrifying than that? Now let's go deeper, because the seducer's power doesn't stop with identity. Once they convince you that your worth depends on them, they begin shaping your memories too. Think about the toxic relationship where, over time, you forget the pain and only cling to the rare good moments. Think about the manipulative leader who repeats their story until you start doubting your own version of events. Think about the times you swore you'd walk away, but later convinced yourself it wasn't that bad. That's not weakness. That's seduction at its highest level, the rewriting of memory itself. Nietzsche understood this long before psychology had the language. He saw that memory is not fixed. It is elastic, fragile, vulnerable to suggestion. And when someone manipulates your memory, they control not just your past, but your present and your future. This is why Nietzsche was so merciless in his attacks on institutions of power, because he saw how identity and memory were used as weapons. Religions made people believe their very worth was sinful and broken, needing redemption. Governments convinced individuals that their identity was only meaningful if dissolved into the nation. And in love, partners convinced each other that without them, they were incomplete. Different players, same formula. Rewrite the identity, rewrite the memory, rewrite the soul. So here's the question you must ask yourself. How much of who you think you are is actually you? And how much is what someone else seduced you into becoming? Do you believe you are unworthy because someone treated you that way? Do you believe you're valuable only when you're useful? Do you chase validation because someone once made you doubt your right to exist without it? If so, then Nietzsche's warning is already at your door. Your identity has been rewritten. And here's why most people never break free. It feels good. It feels good to be mirrored. It feels good to be chosen. It feels good to believe someone holds the key to your worth. And so, people cling to their chains. They defend the very people who are draining them. They trade freedom for the comfort of a reflection. Nietzsche called this slave morality, the mindset of those who surrender their true strength for the illusion of belonging. And he despised it, not because he despised people, but because he saw how it crushed the human spirit. So where does this leave you? Here at the crossroads, you can keep chasing the reflections others give you, the validation, the approval, the identity offered like candy. Or you can choose the harder path, to reclaim your own reflection, to define your worth by your own standards, to refuse seduction no matter how sweet it feels in the moment. This was Nietzsche's challenge. Only the strongest dare to step away from dependence and face the terrifying but liberating reality of self-ownership. But here's the chilling part. Even identity isn't the final trap, because seduction has one layer left, a layer more powerful than desire and deeper than identity. It is the layer that doesn't just hijack what you want or who you are, but twists the very concept of morality itself into a leash around your soul. And in part 3, we will uncover this final and darkest form of seduction, the morality that makes you believe you are righteous while keeping you enslaved. So far, we've uncovered 2 deadly layers of seduction. First, the hunger of desire, which makes you chase what you don't have. Second, the trap of identity, which convinces you that your very self depends on someone else. But Nietzsche saw something even darker, a deeper chain, a leash disguised not as desire or identity, but as virtue. This is the morality trap. Here's how it works. Most people think morality is about being good, noble, righteous, but Nietzsche looked closer, and what he saw wasn't morality. It was manipulation dressed in holy robes. He called it slave morality. Why? Because it was never about truth. It was about control. Imagine this. From the time you were a child, you were told certain things. Be humble. Don't be selfish. Always obey. Good people sacrifice. Good people endure. Good people forgive endlessly. Sounds noble, doesn't it? But Nietzsche asked, noble for whom? Because here's the brutal truth. Those rules didn't evolve to protect you. They evolved to protect the powerful. Think about it. If you can convince someone that pride is evil, they'll never rise above their station. If you can convince someone that anger is sinful, they'll never rebel against their chains. If you can convince someone that suffering is holy, they'll endure their oppression without question. Do you see the game? Morality in this form is not a guide, it's a muzzle. And Nietzsche hated muzzles. Let's take a real example. A religion tells you that desire itself is sinful. So instead of questioning the system, instead of pursuing your deepest drives, you feel guilty for being human. You repent, you apologize, you shrink. Or maybe it's society. Society tells you, don't be selfish, don't want too much, be like everyone else. So you suppress your ambition, you dim your light, you play small just to be accepted. Or maybe it's love. A partner convinces you that loyalty means never questioning them, that forgiveness means tolerating abuse, that being good means silencing your instincts. And you think you're being virtuous, but in reality, you're being seduced. Nietzsche said something chilling. The good is the enemy of the great. Because good, as defined by the herd, often means obedient, docile, weak. It means playing by the rules someone else wrote. It means sacrificing your power so others feel safe. But greatness? Greatness comes when you dare to break the leash, when you question the morality handed to you, when you decide for yourself what's good, what's evil, what's worth living and dying for. That, Nietzsche believed, was the birth of a new morality, one born not from weakness, but from strength. Here's the real trick of seduction through morality. It convinces you that your chains are your halo. It convinces you that your suffering makes you holy. It convinces you that your silence is noble. It convinces you that your submission is love. And you wear the chain proudly. You defend it. You tell others they should wear it too. That's how the trap spreads. Not through force, but through virtue. Now I want you to stop and ask yourself, how many times in your life have you obeyed, not because it was right, but because you wanted to be good? How many times have you stayed silent, not because you agreed, but because you were told anger was ugly? How many times have you shrunk yourself, not because it was wise, but because you were told pride was dangerous? If you've lived that way, you've already felt the morality trap. Nietzsche saw this in every corner of human life. In politics, where people are taught that loyalty to the state is a moral duty. In religion, where obedience to authority is disguised as obedience to God. In love, where sacrifice is glorified while self-respect is condemned. And he asked, who benefits from this? Not you, not the individual, but the systems of power that thrive when people forget their strength. Now let's make this personal. Imagine a version of yourself, untouched by guilt. Imagine a self who does not ask, is this good? Is this bad? But instead asks, is this mine? Does this give me strength? Does this make me more alive? That's the morality Nietzsche wanted us to reclaim. Not the morality of obedience, but the morality of power, the morality of life. He believed the highest form of morality was not being good. It was being authentic, being real, raw, unapologetic, building your own values instead of inheriting the leash of others. But here's the danger. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. You'll begin to notice how often morality is used against you, how often virtue is just a disguise for control. And when you stop obeying, when you step outside the herd, you will be hated for it. Nietzsche called this the burden of the Übermensch, the one who dares to create their own path. The world will call you selfish, arrogant, dangerous, because you no longer bow to their seduction. But that's the price of freedom, and Nietzsche believed it was the only price worth paying. So let's put it all together. Seduction begins with desire, it deepens into identity, and it locks itself with the golden chains of morality. Most people never escape, because they love the chase, they love the reflection, they love the halo. But Nietzsche whispered, all of it is illusion. True freedom begins the moment you see through the masks and choose to build your own law, your own identity, your own morality. But we're not done yet, because even if you escape desire, identity, and morality, there's one more battlefield left, the battlefield of the mind itself, where overthinking, doubt, and inner voices become the seducers that sabotage you from within. And in part 4, we'll uncover how Nietzsche believed your own mind becomes your greatest seducer and how to break its spell. We've walked through Nietzsche's 3 external traps of seduction: desire, identity, and morality. Each one powerful, each one invisible. But Nietzsche knew there was one more enemy left. One far closer, one far more dangerous. Not the seduction of others, but the seduction of your own mind. This is the most subtle, the most deceptive, the most brutal. Because at least with other people, you can see the manipulation. At least you can step back and ask, is this really me, or is this their influence? But when the seducer lives inside your own skull, where do you run? Nietzsche warned about the tyranny of thought, the way our own minds whisper, seduce, sabotage. It begins innocently. You have a thought. I need to figure this out. I need to make the right choice, so you analyze, you weigh, you reflect. But slowly the reflection becomes obsession. You replay every detail. You rewrite every outcome. You convince yourself that if you just think harder, just plan better, just anticipate every possibility, you'll finally be safe. And before you know it, you're no longer thinking. You're drowning. Nietzsche called this the trap of the overactive mind. A mind so busy replaying, rethinking, reanalyzing, that it never actually lives. It seduces you by promising control. It whispers, don't act yet. Think a little more. Imagine one more outcome. Prepare one more safety net, and you believe it, because it feels responsible, intelligent, even wise. But really, it's paralysis disguised as wisdom. It's fear dressed up as rationality. Think of how many times you've sabotaged yourself this way. You wanted to speak your truth, but your mind seduced you into silence with the thought, what if they reject me? You wanted to take a risk, but your mind seduced you with, better wait until it's perfect. You wanted to walk away from something toxic, but your mind seduced you with, what if I regret it later? Every time the pattern is the same. You believe you're protecting yourself, but you're really just keeping yourself chained. Nietzsche despised this form of self-seduction because it robs life of its rawness. He wrote, the thought of suicide is a great consolation. By means of it, one gets through many a dark night. What did he mean? Not that you should seek death, but that sometimes the mere possibility of escape frees the mind from its endless traps. Because the mind left unchecked can make every small challenge feel unbearable. And when you believe every anxious thought, every replay, every what if, you become your own jailer. Here's the paradox Nietzsche exposed. Your mind seduces you not by lying outright, but by telling you half-truths. Yes, you could fail. Yes, people might reject you. Yes, you could regret this. All technically true, but incomplete. What the mind doesn't tell you is this. You'll also fail if you never try. You'll also suffer if you never speak. You'll also regret the life you never lived. And so the seduction of the mind is the deadliest because it makes caution feel like wisdom when in truth it's just fear with better PR. Nietzsche offered an antidote, not endless positive thinking, not blind optimism, but something much more radical, action. He believed thought should never be a substitute for living. He wrote, a thought, even a possibility, can shatter and transform us, but only if it's embodied, only if it's turned into movement, risk, reality. Otherwise, thought rots. It becomes heavy. It turns into that inner seduction that keeps you forever preparing, never becoming. So how do you fight this inner tyrant? First, by recognizing the voice for what it is. Not truth, not destiny, just thought. Second, by acting in spite of it. Not waiting for fear to vanish, but moving while fear is still screaming. Third, by accepting imperfection. By realizing life is not meant to be rehearsed 1,000 times in your head before it's lived once in reality. Nietzsche believed greatness belongs to those who dare to leap, not those who endlessly calculate. Think about it. The seduction of desire, identity, and morality can all be broken with awareness. But the seduction of the mind can only be broken with courage, because the voice will never fully stop. The whispers of doubt, fear, hesitation, they'll always be there. The question is, will you listen, or will you step forward anyway? Nietzsche saw life as a battlefield, not just against the world, but against the self. And he believed the strongest warriors were not those without fear, but those who refused to be seduced by it. So if you find yourself paralyzed by thought, drowning in overthinking, seduced by your own mind into inaction, remember this: freedom doesn't come when the fear stops. It comes when you stop obeying it. But Nietzsche's philosophy didn't end with the battle of the mind, because there's one more seduction left. The seduction not of desire, identity, morality, or even thought, but the seduction of truth itself. The illusion that there is one ultimate truth, one final answer, one unquestionable certainty. And in part 5, we'll explore how Nietzsche shattered this illusion, and why letting go of absolute truth might be the only way to truly live free. We've uncovered the 4 layers of seduction so far: desire, identity, morality, and the mind itself. But Nietzsche saved his sharpest sword for the deepest illusion of all: truth. Not the truth you tell to a friend, not the truth of facts or evidence, but the seductive illusion that there exists one final, absolute, unquestionable truth with a capital T. This is the ultimate chain, because once you believe you found the truth, you stop questioning, you stop doubting, you stop growing, and in Nietzsche's eyes, that is the most dangerous seduction of all. Let's break it down. From the time you were a child, people have been handing you truths. This is what life means. This is who God is. This is what's right. This is what's wrong. This is who you are, and this is who you can never be. And because you were young, because you were impressionable, you accepted it. Why? Because certainty feels safe. But Nietzsche whispered, certainty is the greatest seduction. Think about it. If someone can convince you that their story is the truth, they don't need chains or prisons. They don't need to force you. You will police yourself. You will obey voluntarily. This is why Nietzsche declared, there are no facts, only interpretations. Not because he believed nothing was real, but because he saw how every truth we cling to is shaped, filtered, manipulated by perspective. Truth is never neutral. It is always someone's lens. And yet, once we mistake it for absolute, it becomes a leash around the soul. Take religion. For centuries, entire civilizations were seduced by the belief that their God, their scripture, their interpretation was the only truth. And because of that belief, they obeyed. They sacrificed. They even killed. Not because they were evil, but because they were convinced they were serving truth itself. Take politics. Nations convince citizens that their ideology, their constitution, their history is the one true story. And people fight, bleed, and die for it, never realizing it was just one interpretation among many. Take relationships. Someone convinces you, I am your soulmate. Without me, there is no meaning, and you cling to them, not just as a person, but as the embodiment of truth. Different domains, same pattern. Truth becomes the most seductive prison of all. But here's the paradox. Why do we fall for it? Because uncertainty terrifies us. We want meaning. We want order. We want something solid to hold on to in the chaos of existence. And so, when someone hands us the truth, we grab it with both hands. It soothes the fear. It silences the doubt. It gives us the illusion of ground beneath our feet. But Nietzsche said that ground is quicksand. The more tightly you cling to it, the deeper you sink. Now let's make this brutally personal. Ask yourself, what truths have you accepted without question? That you're not good enough? That you must follow the same path as everyone else? That happiness comes only through money or status or approval? Each one feels real. Each one feels like truth. But each one may just be another seduction, another story someone else planted in your mind. Nietzsche believed that the strongest individuals are not those who find truth, but those who create it. He called this the will to power, the ability to shape meaning, to forge values, to live without the crutch of absolute certainty. For Nietzsche, life was not about discovering the one true answer. It was about courageously writing your own answers, knowing full well they are temporary, fragile, imperfect, but yours. That's why he said, God is dead. Not to celebrate destruction, but to expose the collapse of absolute truths. He was warning us, If you cling to illusions, you will crumble with them. But if you dare to live without them, you will be free. Here's the irony. When you stop needing ultimate truth, you don't fall into despair. You rise into freedom, because no truth can hold you hostage anymore. No system can seduce you with the promise of certainty. No person can convince you they are your only meaning. You become dangerous to every manipulator, every institution, every seducer, because you no longer need their story to feel whole. But Nietzsche also knew this freedom comes at a cost. When you walk away from absolute truths, you will feel the chaos. You will feel the void. You will feel the terrifying weight of creating meaning for yourself. Most people run back to seduction at this point. They cling again to desire, identity, morality, or truth, just to escape the burden of freedom. But Nietzsche insisted, stay in the chaos, stay in the uncertainty, because that's where true strength is born. So let's tie this together. The final seduction isn't lust or love or morality or thought. It's certainty. It's the illusion that there is one unquestionable truth. And Nietzsche's solution wasn't to replace it with another truth. It was to rip away the mask entirely, to live without illusions, to become the creator of your own values, your own meaning, your own law. This is the way of the Übermensch, not the one who obeys truth, but the one who transcends it. But before we finish, there's one last step, because Nietzsche didn't just want us to see through seduction, he wanted us to use it, to flip the power, to stop being seduced and start seducing life itself. And in part 6, we'll reveal Nietzsche's final lesson, how to turn the art of seduction into a weapon of freedom, creation, and power. We've traveled through the darkest corners of seduction. We've seen how it grips desire, reshapes identity, twists morality, and disguises itself as truth. But Nietzsche never wanted us to stop at exposure. He didn't want us to simply play the victim, forever pointing at the chains around our wrists. His philosophy was never about resignation. It was about transformation, about reclaiming power. And here at the end comes the most radical turn. If you understand seduction deeply enough, you no longer need to fear it. You can become the seducer, not of others, but of life itself. Think of it this way. Most people live like prey. They are seduced by lovers, leaders, ideologies, and illusions. They cling to what they're given. They beg for scraps of attention. They worship truths they never chose. But Nietzsche's Übermensch, his vision of the free human, flips the script. Instead of being seduced, they seduce existence. Instead of begging for meaning, they create it. Instead of waiting for life to hand them purpose, they seduce life into giving itself up. This is the highest form of power. So how does one become this kind of seducer? First, by breaking the spell of dependency. You must withdraw your hunger from the games others play. The toxic partner who withholds affection, the boss who dangles approval, the system that whispers promises of safety. You must see them for what they are, illusions. When you no longer chase the scraps, you starve the seducer. Their power withers because their leash no longer pulls you. This is step 1. Become unhookable. Step 2. Learn the art of rhythm. Remember how seduction worked on you? It was never constant attention. It was the rhythm of scarcity and reward. It was the tension between what was given and what was withheld. Now imagine turning that principle inward. What if instead of begging for life to hand you meaning, you built your own rhythm of creation? The seducer of life knows when to act and when to withdraw, when to push and when to hold back, when to give themselves pleasure and when to deny it, so the fire burns brighter. In other words, they don't let the world set the tempo, they set it themselves. Step 3, become the mirror, but never the slave of it. We saw how seducers reflect back the version of you that you long to see. That's why they feel like soulmates. But Nietzsche would say, stop waiting for someone else to reflect you. Reflect yourself. Become your own mirror. Write your own story so powerfully that others can't help but see you through it. This is not arrogance, it is authorship. The seducer of life doesn't wait to be told who they are. They write it, they perform it, they embody it. Step 4, seduce with values. This is where Nietzsche's philosophy reaches its sharpest edge. He didn't just want us to live without borrowed morality, he wanted us to create new ones. Imagine this. Instead of being seduced by society's definitions of good and bad, you invent your own compass. You live by principles that come not from fear, but from strength, not from obedience, but from authenticity. And when you do this, when you live so fiercely by your own creation, others will feel it. They will be drawn to you. They will want to orbit you because you are no longer orbiting anyone else. This is how you flip the power. The seduced becomes the seducer. But here's the final twist. Nietzsche never meant for you to use this power merely to dominate others. That would be just another trap, another cycle of control. The true aim is higher, to seduce existence itself, to live in such a way that life gives itself to you, to make reality itself bend to the rhythm of your creation, to become so unapologetically alive, so dangerously authentic that the world cannot ignore you. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming who you are. It's not about conquest over others. It's about mastery over yourself. And from that mastery, everything else follows. So let's bring it together. The darkest seduction tactic begins with desire. It deepens into identity. It tightens with morality. It disguises itself as truth. But Nietzsche's final lesson is this. You don't escape seduction by running from it. You escape it by owning it, by turning its rhythm, its mirrors, its illusions into tools of creation, by becoming the one who writes the story, not the one trapped inside it. This is why Nietzsche remains dangerous even today, because he is whispering to you right now. You don't have to be the prey. You don't have to live by their chains. You can break free. You can create. You can seduce life itself into surrendering its meaning to you. But only if you dare. And so, the choice is yours. You can go back to your illusions. You can keep calling your chains love or loyalty or truth. You can live comfortably inside the story someone else wrote for you. Or you can step into the abyss, Nietzsche pointed, toward the abyss of uncertainty, the abyss of creation, the abyss where nothing is handed to you, but everything is possible. That's the path of the Übermensch. That's the path of freedom. That's the path of power. And if you walk it, you will never be seduced again, because you will be the seducer, not of people, not of systems, but of life itself. That is Nietzsche's final weapon. Not fear, not obedience, not chains, but the courage to stand in the storm of existence and whisper, I am not yours to seduce. I am the one who seduces life itself.